You are welcome to yet another episode of HN What's Your Say? The #1 listening show where we discuss real issues with real people like you. We are still featuring R. Kelly. Real name Robert Sylvester Kelly. Also known as the R&B King. Among the charges for which R. Kelly was declared guilty in New York were racketeering, sexual exploitation of children, forced labor, and Mann Act violation. The racketeering charges have been discussed several times and we have found them to be not just lacking, but also inappropriate for the R. Kelly situation. There is no way to prove RICO without showing evidence of an enterprise. How the Brooklyn federal judge and her jury managed to miraculously come up with a guilty verdict in this regard is still rather difficult to understand. And when this move was queried by attorney Jennifer Bonjean in her post-trial submission, the judge adamantly responded, suggesting the government did not have to prove an illegal enterprise. According to Judge Ann Donnelly, for as long as any one of R. Kelly's staff saw these women with him and did nothing about it, this is enough justification for the racketeering charges. By suggesting the government needed not prove a criminal enterprise, the New York-based federal judge conceded defeat, as it remains an important prerequisite and stated by law that before any defendant is charged with RICO, the investigations must prove an illegal enterprise of a number of people involved in criminal activity as a team. Simply assuming that a defendant who happens to be at the helm of any business team automatically qualifies to be charged with RICO is acting oblivious to the laws of this country. And besides, this has not been the case when compared to previous cases where CEOs have been involved in related cases. A good example being the Fox News case that saw the corporation CEO Roger Ailes fired on matters of sexual harassment. Much as by virtue of his position as CEO he must have had some of his staff plan out his trips, meetings and lunches he had with his accusers, he was never charged with RICO. The RICO charges therefore cannot be uniquely applied to R. Kelly as an individual, unless Judge Ann Donnelly wants us to believe that this country has a special constitution for black defendants that does not apply to the other races. With the RICO charges completely challenged as inappropriate for the case against R. Kelly, we are left with sexual exploitation, child labor and Mann Act violation. A deeper look into the basis of the forced labor allegations also does leave us with questions that have long remained unanswered. It is alleged that accuser Geronda Pace was forced to give R. Kelly oral services in a way of forced labor, an act against which the government presented no proof to support the allegations. Another alleged forced labor victim is Faith Rogers, whose claims are based on a single-sex act that supposedly took place in a studio with a gun lying on his table. Faith Rogers, who had been frequently seeing R. Kelly in different places to enjoy sexual relations with her newfound boyfriend, suggests that this one time when she found a gun lying on his table was so scary, and that this saw her give in unwillingly, turning what was her usual habit into an act of forced labor by the R&B King. By choosing to declare R. Kelly guilty of forced labor in this regard, the New York judge suggests a couple cannot indulge in a mutually agreed sexual encounter when there is a gun lying on the table, even if the man has shown no intention to use it, or even when the man has not in any way threatened the woman that he may have to use the weapon. This judicial conclusion alone could make it rather difficult for any armed personnel to indulge in sexual relations with their loved ones, considering there will always be a weapon in the picture. And meanwhile, this was an adult woman who wants the world to believe that much as she was in the habit of sleeping around with R. Kelly, this one time it happened with a gun lying on the table became an act of forced labor. Anyone with an unbiased opinion will not buy this story that was concocted by the government purposely in order to add to R. Kelly's list of forced guilty verdicts. And when it comes to the Mann Act violation, the case against R. Kelly looks even more and more like a coup against truth. As we have explained before, the Mann Act is an anti-slavery law that criminalizes the transportation of any woman or girl across state lines for the purpose of prostitution, debauchery, or for any immoral purpose. Much as this law was formulated to combat forced prostitution, it's not strange, however, to see the Mann Act used to criminalize many forms of consensual sex between partners. In R. Kelly's case, for example, it was concluded by the New York judge together with a jury of 12 that he was guilty of Mann Act violation when he allegedly transported Azriel and Faith Rogers on separate occasions, and exposed them to the risk of contracting an STD. By concluding this way, The court suggests that R. Kelly's violation of the Mann Act had to do with transportation of these two women with intention to commit crime in another state, as though there was any leverage whatsoever in exposing them to an STD in these particular states in question. Remember, the law was purposed to control the movement of criminals across states in search for safe havens where they could commit crimes conveniently with no legal consequences. In R. Kelly's scenario though, clearly if any woman traveled to another state to meet with him, first, it was never his sole initiative, as evidence shows the parents were the main motivation actors for these travels, hoping to gain if their daughters were in relationship with Robert, and secondly, there was no criminal motivation behind these travels, considering even the destination states do have laws prohibiting intentional transmission of STDs. And remember that if the purpose of transportation was not necessarily to commit the stated crime in the next state, the Mann Act cannot apply. We will be producing a special release to explain this law, and why R. Kelly is not necessarily guilty of it. If any defendant had any woman or girl travel across state lines to meet them for legal purposes such as attending the Oscars, attending music shows, or even simply taking a holiday away from home, and unfortunately a crime happened in the destination state whose occurrence was not the actual purpose of travel, there is no way such a person should be charged with Mann Act violation. There are laws to handle crime that occurs in every single state, and these would have been the laws of choice if lock up R. Kelly for life was not the motivation that drove the judge to make such a non-aligned conclusion. If R. Kelly broke the law in California where one of these women traveled to attend the Oscars, the victim should file a case in the state of California and have him prosecuted for it over there. Trying to jumble up accusations of all kinds in a single New York case only reveals the sinister intentions of both the accusers and the Justice Department, whose only goal was to have R. Kelly locked up, even if they had to lie for it. The majority of accusations against R. Kelly were never backed up by evidence and in normal circumstances would be dismissed without prejudice. It's however quite interesting how the justice system in alliance with the government have continued to push for the justification of these unfounded allegations that are akin to blackmail and abuse of the justice system for personal gain. It's also ugly to see the way these two entities have continued to advocate for the downfall of one man basing on matters they failed to prove at trial. The energy and determination shown by the judges and their government counterparts will leave any observer concerned as to where our country is going. When two big institutions allow to be used as tools of destruction against a single individual, it becomes a matter of national concern. It looks like the government has now opted for partnership with the Me Too movement and the feminists to wage a war against powerful celebrities, and most especially those of the black race. According to Mindy Stein, R. Kelly is a very generous person. Unfortunately, he was generous to the wrong people. I actually do feel for his children who are missing out on the benefits of his hard work simply because some selfish individuals have chosen to sabotage the flow of things in his life. He has worked hard to be successful, and for this to happen is so horrible and disgusting. Hoping he gets released very soon and that he gets to build a new life with his children. Shame on those taking advantage of this situation to extort him and take what literally belongs to his beloved children. According to Gusto, R. Kelly is locked up on he say she say. No real facts whatsoever, and it's high time he got acquitted. The same charges he was acquitted for back in 2008 is what was brought back, amounting to double jeopardy. I feel his file just hasn't hit the right hand yet. While I may not support any acts of child abuse, holding someone on rumors with no real evidence I do not support. I ain't buying these BS charges against R. Kelly, and I am one of those that believe he deserves to be released immediately. If you wish to take part in a live interview on this channel discussing any of these topics, let us know by emailing us on sashahnnewsroom@gmail.com for scheduling. That is all we had for you today on HN What's Your Say. To keep updated whenever we post a new video, subscribe to this channel now. Also remember to hit the bell icon and enable notifications. And feel free to share your opinions with us in the comment section below, and let us know if you would like us to publish your views in our next release. We value all our subscribers' opinions.